Go. Hey, folks, this is Doug Blake with Body Design University. Great to have you on board. Yes, yes, everybody is here for our live study. And we do hold this every Saturday at 1 o'clock. That's Eastern Standard Time. So please go ahead and put it into your calendar. We will be today kind of finishing up what we did last week. We are on Module 1, Lesson 1, the second slide, and the goal is to get through at least this one slide. And if you all have any questions, please let us know. By the way, those of you that are watching as a recording, please go ahead and put your comments below. Sound good? Is everybody ready?
Yay.
Yay. Wow, that was almost a legitimate yay. Okay, guys, so if you would, if you have, by the way, if you have your workbook, my recommendation is to have it out and take notes as we go along. Remember, the other thing here is that if you do need to ask a question, you can throw it in the chat, of course, or you can just raise your hand and I will be more than happy to answer the questions. Everybody good? Everybody ready? Yes? Okay. So guys, we ended up, or at least we ended with the one slide here where we talked about the actin and the myosin filaments. And really the key to this particular slide was understanding that at the sort of at the smallest level physically of the contractile components of a muscle, right? We went from a muscle, fascicle, muscle cell, myofibrils, all of the components that now bring us down to what's known as the sarcomere. What was the sarcomere? It is the basic or fundamental, important to know this definition, fundamental contractile unit of the muscle cell. I'm going to say that again. The sarcomere is the fundamental contractile unit of the muscle cell. And the sarcomere is essentially, now guys, we could get way deeper into the actual physiology of the sarcomere, but there's really just a couple of main components that y'all need to know, and that is what we call the myofilaments, actin and myosin. And structurally, the myosin, which is a fairly large protein, by the way, approximately 5,000 amino acids big. So that's a big protein, folks, just so you know. And its main function, the myosin, you see that in the red, its main function is to essentially grab, right, sort of attach itself to the actin filaments. And actin is also a protein in the sarcomere. And basically, the actins are able to kind of slide back and forth, right, over the myosin. And the way that is occurring is through this concept known as cross bridging, okay? It's a good idea to write those words down. So actin, myosin, cross bridging. Does that make sense? And so we have this sliding scenario, hence the name sliding filament theory. Does that make sense, Eagle? We have what's called the sliding filament theory of muscle contraction. Does that make sense? And this is simply the myosin filaments, protein filaments, are basically at the center. Now they're held, by the way, in place by other structural proteins, and then essentially what they do is they pull the actins on either side of them closer and closer together, and you can see that the sarcomere itself then is actually going to shorten. Okay, I hope that makes sense. How many of y'all, you ever use a ratchet? You know, like a ratchet to tighten something? Let's go. This is yes. Yeah. Does everybody know what a ratchet? Yes. If you put a ratchet onto a bolt and you pull it down and you tighten it, right? So it tightens. What happens after you're done pulling it down? Well, you can move it back up into position without changing the position of the bolt or the nut that you actually tightened. So it turns and then goes back into place. It sort of resets itself. Well, that's the way we try to explain the sliding filament theory and this concept of cross bridging, which is that the heads, we call them heads, of the myosin proteins actually are able to swivel back and forth. And what they do is they go into an extended position, attach themselves to the actin filaments, and like a ratchet, they literally pull the actins closer. So the heads of the myosin are actually swiveling inward toward the center of the sarcomere. Then they release and go back into position. So it's similar to a ratchet. Okay. And by the way, nothing wrong with going on to Google or YouTube and watching this in real. You can Google sliding filament theory. You probably see some really neat right representations of that movement. Has everybody got this? Does that everybody get the idea? Here's the key when it comes to resistance training, weightlifting, any type of resistance training, is that what we are looking to do to generate tension in a muscle, to generate higher and higher levels of tension in a muscle, is to get what? More cross bridging in more of the myofibrils, in more of the muscle cells. The more cross bridging I have, the more myofibrils involved in a particular movement pattern, the more muscle cells involved in a movement pattern does what for the overall development of tension? What does it do? Does it increase it or decrease it?
Increase.
Thank you, Terry. I appreciate that. Yes, it increases. Okay. Now, I think I said this last week. The reality is that the total number of cross bridges, remember, folks, this is at the cellular level, this is microscopic. The total number of cross bridges that are involved with you just curling a 10-pound dumbbell, all the muscle fibers in your biceps, within the fascicles, right, within the cells, right, all of those muscle fibers, all of the myofibrils, the total number of actual cross bridges is a very, very large number. Does anybody have any idea, just for the fun of it? How many cross bridges do you think? Cross bridges, myosin connecting to actins. Does anybody have an idea? Just throw out a number.
Million?
How
Millions?
much?
Couple thousand.
Millions?
Millions?
Hundreds of thousands.
Yes.
Oh, higher.
Yeah, it's more like 10 to the 6th, 10 to the 7th number of cross bridges during a simple contraction of a muscle. So we're talking, does everybody know what 10 to the 7 number of cross bridges are? It's beyond our comprehension, to be honest with you. But that's what happens every single time you do something simple. I'm moving my hands, I'm using muscles. Y'all get this? Your body is an incredible machine when it comes down to this idea of neuromuscular facilitation and the use of muscles to move resistance. Does that make sense to everybody? It is a tremendous amount of actual cross bridges that are needed to generate tension. All you care about is curling more weight or doing heavier weights, right? Not that I'm saying we're super interested about the amount of weight, but we do want our clients to get stronger. Yes?
Yeah.
Absolutely we do.
Is
But
it because
not,
they're so small?
say again?
Is it because they're so small that it's so
Be-
many of them?
Yes, because it's microscopic. It's literally, these are microscopic. You got to look at them. I used somebody's hair last week. I asked them to take a
Yeah.
strand of hair to show you,
Tony.
give you some appreciation. A muscle cell is thinner in diameter than a human hair, much thinner, in fact. So think of how many hairs you'd have to make a muscle belly. It's a lot, folks. So again, I like to go over this concept number so you get an appreciation for understanding anatomy, number one, and then the physiology, which is for us as trainers, we're interested in the generation of muscle tension. Fair enough? Yes? I don't
Yeah.
want to beat that horse down too much. So the sliding filament theory then basically says that actin and myosin filaments engage each other in such a way that actins on either side of the sarcomere, can everybody see me kind of circling around the sarcomere here? Yes? Right? Every actin is connected to the one side of the sarcomere and the other side. And they're just simply pulling the edges of the sarcomere closer, the sarcomere shorten. Sarcomeres run in series from one tendon to the other tendon. When all of the sarcomeres in the myofibril inside a muscle cell, when all of them well, for the most part, simultaneously shorten, what happens to the muscle, the entire muscle? If you have enough muscle cells shortening, what happens?
They
Contraction.
Yeah,
contract.
the muscle shortens or contracts. It's really that simple. Okay. Any questions? Does that help? Hey, Pharaoh, does that help, folks? For some
Yes.
of you, I'm sure this is relatively simple, but I will say that the concept, this three-dimensional concept of understanding how muscle cells shorten, could be a game changer when it comes to you going into the gym and training yourself and or working with clients. Okay. All right. So next slide. Okay. Okay, guys. So now we talk about the motor unit. I went over this briefly last week. What is the motor unit? It is a single muscle cell and a single nerve cell and all the muscle cells that it connects to. I've given you, I basically just threw a picture here. Really simple, basic concept of a motor unit. A single, what is it? A single, say it,
Nerve
nerve cell
cell.
and multiple muscle fibers. Got it? Single nerve, all the fibers that it innervates. Innervation is a fancy term for electrically stimulating. Okay, that's what nerves do, guys. Nerve cells are able to generate what's known as electrical potential. Okay, it's not really high voltage, but it's enough to stimulate the neurotransmitters to move across what we call the synaptic cleft into the muscle cell. The muscle cell then causes calcium ions, which are located in the endoplasmic reticulum, and whoosh, and it sends it out through the muscle, and the entire muscle contracts. Okay, don't want to get into too deep into the mechanics of that. You could look it up if you want, but it's not necessary. From a personal training perspective, you don't have to go that deep into the physiology. The action potential itself is generated by the change in the electromagnetic status of the nerve body. Does anybody know the two electrolytes that are involved with the generation of voltage in a nerve cell? Anybody? Any? Come on.
Potassium, magnesium.
Man, you got two of them, but those aren't the two I was hoping for.
Oh.
Potassium. Did you say potassium, Francette?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes. And sodium, right?
Sodium.
Potassium and sodium. Just so you guys know, your bodies are remarkable. We have the ability in nerve cells to maintain electrical potential by having an increased level of certain electrolytes inside the cell and maintaining concentrations of other electrolytes outside the cell. I say it's simple, but it's really just an exchange of these electrolytes that cause the electrical potential to be converted into an actual electrical impulse, and that's what we call an action potential. And that electrical impulse is what shoots down the axon of the nerve. Now, another concept that's actually really important is what we call tonus. How many of y'all have ever heard or listened to people, you yourself, say, I just want to get toned up? Yes? Who wants to get toned up? And you'll notice I'm raising my hand because I want to stay toned like some of you guys too. You know what I mean? What does that mean to be toned? Give me a
More
definition.
muscle, less fat.
Yeah. Does it mean you can see your muscle definition?
Kind of, sort of, no.
But
Somebody
is
else.
it like
No,
it's a shape, building a shape?
how about
The
how
muscles tighter.
firm, tight? Yes. When you're
So like the
toned,
term when you're not flexing them, kind of they just
Yes.
look toned, like you see somebody where they're not flexing them, but you can see the muscle definition. Okay.
so Very good. What we use is a term that describes muscles that are not under active contraction. We use the term tonus. Every one of you, if you just sit there and put your arms at your side, your deltoids, your biceps, if you are not actively contracting those muscles, they are in a state of what we call tonus. Tonus is really just a sort of low level state of contraction that human skeletal muscle in particular stays in, right? Because there's always going to be some electrical activity. You got it? I remember many years ago, and when I say many, I'm talking high school. That's like many years ago. A friend of mine, unfortunately, got into an accident and became a paraplegic. And when I went to visit him, and he's a pretty strong, big athlete, 6'2", 220 pounds. Well, when I went to visit him in the hospital, I looked at his legs, and his legs were what do you all imagine if you've seen this? His legs had shrunken down to these little nothing. And the reason that is, I'm just using that as an example. The reason that is because when the nerves in his spine, which are activating the muscles in the legs at that level, it's generally going to be at the T, I think his was like T12, L1, somewhere around there. The nerve stimulation that maintained tonus to his legs had been severed. Y'all get this? And so because there was no nerve stimulation, all the muscles from his waist down had completely deactivated and was not receiving any neurological stimulus. Every one of you, for the most part, all the skeletal muscles in your body are receiving, provided your spinal column is functioning properly, are receiving a low grade or low level of neurological stimulus to all your muscles. Now, if you just go ahead and push your bicep, go ahead. You can do it. I'm not going to laugh at you. Just don't do it in public. You push it in if you push your bicep, what do you notice? It's spongy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of spongy. Now, look, some of you are less spongy than others. Okay, I get that. And some of you, even just sitting there, you've got firm, a firm muscle. That is descriptive of the level of tonus that you have in your muscles. Is everybody with me on this?
Yes.
It's critically important that you understand that every client that you ever train, and yourself included, you have low-level stimulus of your muscles all the time. When you embark on a resistance training program, guess what tends to happen to the tonus of your muscles?
It increases.
Booyah. Jonathan, was that you?
Yes.
Give Jonathan a hand. Come on now. Come on. Or not. I'll do it for all of you. Yes, that's right. Your tonus increases, meaning what? Your muscles become, quote, firmer, even when you're not working out. Y'all get that? So when you're training clients, one of your sort of talking points is you need to do resistance training, and we need to use a fair amount of resistance and weight so that we can increase the tone of your muscles. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Last slide for today. When we're talking about the nervous system, then we have to also include those nerve muscle structures known as the muscle spindle fibers and the Golgi tendon organ. Okay. These are sensory structures in your muscles. Muscle spindle fibers are located deep within the muscle belly. It's a specific structure that's actually, we call them interfusal fibers, not the most important thing to remember, that's wrapped around by a nerve, a sensory nerve that tells the body when the muscle is being lengthened, shortened, and how fast that's happening. The key here is that muscle spindle fibers will tell your body, quote, I'm saying it right like it's talking to it, but the stimulation of muscle spindle fibers tells the muscle that it is in to do what? Contract.
Crack or, yeah.
So when you stimulate, however that is, I'm not going to go over that with you, with you today, but when the muscle spindle fibers inside a particular muscle, like your biceps, when they're stimulated, they will tell the muscle, quote, tell the muscle through the electrostimulation of the nerve cells apparatus to tighten up and contract.
Crack.
You got that?
Mhm.
And by the way, again, those muscle spindle fibers are located within the muscle belly itself, deep within the muscle belly. There are special structures known as intrafusal fibers that do that. Now, you also have what are known as the Golgi tendon organ. The GTOs do just the opposite of the muscle spindle fibers. Folks, this is critical to know this. When the Golgi tendon organ, okay, let me get off of here so you can see the intensity of my face. When the Golgi tendon organ is stimulated, now Golgi tendon organs are located in the what we call the musculotendinous area of a muscle. In other words, muscles and tendons, right? And then the tendons attached to the bone, right? Well, where the muscles and the tendon are merged, you have what are known as Golgi tendon organs. When those are stimulated, and there's a specific way that they get stimulated. But when they are stimulated, they tell the muscle to do what?
Stop. Shut it down.
Relax.
Relax.
They tell the muscle to relax. Are you all with me on this? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Muscle spindles do what? Everybody say it. Tell the
Contract.
muscle to contract. GTOs tell the muscle to
Relax.
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 So, guys, folks, ladies, gentlemen, you now have at your disposal, by understanding those two basic concepts, you have at your disposal the ability to manually manipulate muscles to tell them to either contract, right? You can tell them to contract by lifting a weight, but this isn't a semi-autonomic issue. Does that make sense? Or you can tell, I use the word tell, you can actually manipulate muscles to relax as well. Wouldn't that be a good idea? If you're doing stretching with somebody, wouldn't it be a good idea to be able to get them to relax their hamstrings? Yes or no?
Yes.
The answer is yes, if you weren't sure. You want to be able to help somebody, your client, to relax the muscle so it can lengthen. And this is where the Golgi tendon organs kind of kick in. Now, before we go into some Q&A on here, those last two terms, did everybody see the last two terms? Yes?
Yes.
Autogenic inhibition and
Typical.
reciprocal inhibition. I'll go over them next week a little bit more as well. But here's the thing you need to remember about those two. Autogenic inhibition is one muscle. Keep this in the back of your mind. One muscle. Anytime you see a question or have anything to do with the concept of autogenic inhibition, it refers to one muscle, an individual muscle. Is everybody with me? So autogenic inhibition occurs because the GTO shuts down the muscle spindles in a single muscle. Okay. Reciprocal inhibition involves two. Now, I'm going to say it technically it's two or more, depending on the agonist and antagonistic pairings, but let's just keep it simple. Reciprocal inhibition always involves two. It could be more, but two muscles that are, listen to this word, antagonistic to each other in their functions. I'm going to leave it there. We'll talk about all of those terms more as we continue each week. Does that make sense? So autogenic, single muscle, reciprocal, generally two or more muscles. Does that make sense, everybody? Yes? Okay. So who has a question on just that material that we've gone over? Because I've got 128. Okay, Jonathan, since I had bilateral carpal tunnel surgery, okay, do you need me to put my clinical hat on? Is that what you want me to do, Jonathan, here or what?
I'm just wondering, does that mean that the Golgi tendons weren't properly telling the muscles to relax And that's the reason they were clamped down on the nerve.
No, that's not the reason. When you have a carpal tunnel release, it's actually because of either ligamentous disruption, either the ligaments are in a poor position, disrupted position, or your nerve is passing through a tendon, soft tissue structure in an inappropriate way. That's generally what you're seeing. And of course, when you have carpal tunnel release, you can have a severe level of inflammation that's not due to GTOs or muscle spindles themselves. Now,
I was having numbness.
with that said, is it going to disrupt the Golgi tendon organs? And the answer to that is absolutely.
Okay.
But that's not the cause.
Okay.
Y'all with me on this?
Yes.
Carpal tunnel syndrome is essentially the nerve that runs through the structures in your wrist are being impinged upon in some way, shape, or form. I don't know what that is. The surgeon would look and go, "Oh, there it is." They are generally going to cut and release ligaments. They may do some tendon reattachments as well. They don't want to do that if they don't have to, because that could be problematic for finger dexterity and wrist movement. Okay, but it will cut down the inflammation that occurs within what's known as the carpal tunnel. But no, the quick answer is no. It's not your Golgi tendon organs that are doing that. No, but there will be disruption to any of the nerve activity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any other questions on this? Any other questions? Yes? No? Okay, folks. Boy, that is like perfect timing. Give yourselves a hand. Thank you for coming on board today. By the way, if you have not done so, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have any questions on any of the information that we go over in any of these live studies, in the comment box, write the question. And if you do understand it, then write the word understand. It's great having you all. Have a great rest of the day, great weekend, and we will see you next week. Take care.